you all right? She's fine. I'm 50 bucks in the hole.
In 1985, 4 women sat down at a kitchen table in Miami and changed American television. They were older than anyone the networks had dared center a sitcom around in years. They were funny, sharp, honest about aging and sexuality and loneliness in ways that primetime TV had never attempted. And they became one of the biggest hits the decade produced. Here's how The Golden Girls of 1985 became a smash hit, and how it fell apart. The idea that shouldn't have worked. The origin of the Golden Girls is one of the more unlikely stories in American television history.
Since Uncle Dominic married off that daughter of his, you know, the one who looks like Tony Bennett?
And it starts with a sketch that almost nobody remembers. In 1984, NBC held its annual affiliates meeting, the gathering where network executives presented their upcoming programming to the station managers who would broadcast it across the country. One of the presentations was a comedy bit performed by actress Selma Diamond, a comedian and actress known at the time for Night Court, in which she played a character confused about a new NBC show called Miami Vice, persistently calling it Miami Nice. The sketch was written to be throwaway entertainment between presentations. Instead, it caught the attention of NBC executive Warren Littlefield, who saw in it something the network hadn't fully recognized, that older women could be genuinely funny.
Lady, what are you trying to say?
Get out.
All right, I guess you ladies are going into your feminist phase.
That their comedic ability was a resource the industry was completely failing to use, and that a show built around them might find an audience that had nothing aimed at it. Littlefield brought the idea to producers Paul Younger-Witt and Tony Thomas. The concept was simple, a comedy about older women living together in Miami. The contrast with Miami Vice, then the most talked about show on television, was part of the pitch. Where Miami Vice was neon and crime and beautiful young men in expensive clothes, this would be warmth and domesticity, and women who had lived enough life to have genuinely interesting things to say. NBC President Brandon Tartikoff had one specific note. He wanted the women to be, in his words, feisty as hell and having a great time.
You are not getting married on an island by a priest wearing clam diggers and a Harry Belafonte shirt.
That note would prove to be the entire instruction manual for what followed. Witt and Thomas needed a writer. Witt's wife was Susan Harris, who had written for All in the Family and Maude, who had created Soap, and who had been semi-retired since Soap ended. She agreed to write the pilot. The premise appealed to her, she later said, because it gave her the chance to create women of a certain age with rich interior lives and real stories to tell. Women who had not been put out to pasture by their years, but who were fully alive inside them. Harris wrote the pilot. She established the format, the sensibility, and the characters that would sustain the show for 7 years. Dorothy Zbornak, a sharp-tongued substitute teacher from Brooklyn.
I found myself right behind him in the line in the cafeteria after I butted ahead of 25 students.
Who had been left by her husband after over 2 decades of marriage. Rose Nyland, a genuinely good-hearted former farm girl from St. Olaf, Minnesota, who processed the world through an endless supply of absurd stories from home. Blanche Devereaux, the Southern belle who owned the house and who had never met a man she wasn't interested in assessing. And Sophia Petrillo, Dorothy's elderly Sicilian mother, who had suffered a stroke that damaged her filter and now said everything she was thinking, always and without apology. There was also a copyright infringement lawsuit filed by a woman named Nancy Bretzfield, who claimed the show was based on a script she had submitted to NBC in 1980 and been rejected. The suit was eventually settled. Casting, the swaps that made the show.
Not talking about cellulite, which I don't have.
Casting 4 actresses for a show about 4 distinct personality types requires getting each actor matched to the right character. and the original instinct for at least two of the roles was wrong in a way that turned out to be instructive. Betty White had spent decades on television, most memorably as the caustic, self-absorbed, and sexually confident Sue Ann Nivens on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, a character whose combination of surface cheerfulness and underlying self-interest had made White one of the most reliably funny presences on 1970s television. The initial thinking was that White's established persona made her a natural fit for Blanche Devereaux, the flirtatious Southern widow who approached life as a series of romantic opportunities.
We know it's not easy, but you've got to get out there and try.
I have tried. I just haven't told you.
Rue McClanahan, meanwhile, was known from her work on Maude for characters that tended toward the warmer, more earnest end of the spectrum. The initial thinking placed her closer to Rose. They swapped. McClanahan, it turned out, had the theatrical range and the specific quality of self-performance that Blanche required. The archness, the awareness of herself as a character in her own story, the ability to play a woman who had turned her own life into a performance and was thoroughly enjoying the run. White, given the opportunity to play Rose, a character built almost entirely on genuine innocence and good faith, discovered in that innocence a comedic instrument she had not been able to fully use before. Rose's naivety was the straight line that Blanche and Dorothy played off, and White delivered it with a deadpan serenity and apparent total commitment.
I'm running naked through a train that keeps going through tunnel after tunnel while a sweaty bodybuilder chases me.
That made every other character's punchline land harder. Rose was never the joke. She was the person the joke happened around, and that required a specific kind of timing that White had and that McClanahan did not. Estelle Getty was cast as Sophia Petrillo, Dorothy's mother, which required Getty to play a woman significantly older than herself. The production added heavy age makeup, adjusted her physicality, and built a character around the premise that a minor stroke had eliminated Sophia's filter, leaving her free to say absolutely whatever she was thinking at any moment. The combination of advanced age and total candor gave the writers a device of remarkable comedic flexibility. What most audiences never knew.
Ma, could you eat a little more quietly, please?
These are Fritos. You want me to swallow them whole?
What became more evident as the years of production passed was that Getty was actually born the same year as B. Arthur, her TV daughter. Arthur was born May 13, 1922. Getty was born July 25, 1923. The mother was 14 months younger than the daughter. The age makeup was not merely cosmetic, it was a complete transformation of someone who was, behind the powdered wig and the hunched posture, essentially the same age as the woman she was pretending to have given birth to 30 years earlier. B. Arthur brought to Dorothy something specific and essential, a quality of genuine exhaustion combined with genuine intelligence that made the character's sarcasm feel earned rather than reflexive. Dorothy had been failed by her husband.
I didn't want to say anything. What the hell, you deserve to gloat a little.
I deserve to gloat a lot.
Had been working a job that was beneath her capabilities for years, was living with her ancient mother while trying to maintain some sense of her own dignity. And Arthur played all of that underneath every joke. When Dorothy was cutting, it was because she had seen enough of life to earn the cut. That quality was not available from many actresses of Arthur's generation, and the show would have been a different and lesser thing without it. The show that changed the conversation. The Golden Girls premiered on Saturday, September 14, 1985, at 9 p.m. on NBC. The pilot was watched by an enormous audience. The show immediately became one of the top-rated programs on television, finishing the 1985-86 season as the number 2 rated show on all of American television.
You're not supposed to eat it until she gets here.
Oh, please, there's enough food here to feed my entire village in Sicily.
Behind only The Cosby Show, it never significantly fell from its dominant position through its first 5 seasons. What the show was doing that no one else was doing is worth being specific about. American primetime television in 1985 was not short of situation comedies. What it was almost entirely short of was any honest representation of what life looked like after a certain age. After the children were grown, after the marriage had either ended or outlasted its participants, after the body had started to make its presence known in new and less flattering ways. The entertainment industry had, for decades, operated on an implicit belief that audiences over 50 were not worth programming for in any serious way.
Always felt like you were among friends.
Mario, that's just beautiful.
You should hear it when I read it.
They watched whatever was on. They didn't drive the conversations that made shows matter. The Golden Girls, from its first season, demonstrated that this belief was wrong. The show addressed subjects that network television of the era routinely avoided. AIDS, in a 1990 episode in which Blanche's brother Clayton came out as gay and was dealing with the disease. Breast cancer, hip replacement surgery, Alzheimer's disease, grief, the loneliness of widowhood, the specific humiliation of being made to feel invisible by a culture that had organized its entertainment primarily around youth. The show did all of this without losing the comedic energy that made the kitchen table scenes, the 3 or 4 of them that concluded most episodes, over cheesecake at 2 in the morning.
And I found a terrific flat on campus.
Oh, that's great. I hear the commute from here is a killer.
Feel like the most comfortable room on television. The cheesecake itself became iconic. The kitchen table, the late-night conversation, the ritual of women talking honestly to each other about their lives. No other set piece in American television of the era was as immediately recognizable. The theme song helped. Thank You for Being a Friend had been written and originally recorded by Andrew Gold in 1978 and was a modest hit. The production hired singer Cynthia Fee to record a new version for the show, and the song's central sentiment, a direct, uncomplicated statement that friendship was the thing being celebrated, matched the show's emotional core exactly. It became one of the most recognizable television themes of the decade.
Seen you somewhere before. Oh, there you are!
The awards came almost immediately. The show won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Comedy Series in 1986 and again in 1987. All 4 lead actresses won Emmy Awards during the show's run, a distinction that had not previously been achieved by any program's entire main cast. Bea Arthur won Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series in 1987. Betty White won the same award in 1986. Rue McClanahan won in 1992. Estelle Getty won Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series in 1988. The Television Critics Association, the Golden Globes, the Screen Actors Guild. The recognition across every platform was consistent and sustained. The audience that found the show was not only older women.
I wanted to talk to you. I know. I didn't need a special occasion for that.
Though older women were the core demographic and the one that had been waiting for exactly this. Men watched. Younger viewers watched. The show developed an unexpected following among college students that said something about the quality of the writing and the universality of the themes. The gay community adopted the show with particular enthusiasm, finding in its celebration of chosen family and its matter-of-fact acceptance of non-traditional domestic arrangements something that felt less like representation and more like recognition. The 4 women of the Golden Girls were living a life that queer people in the 1980s understood. You build your family from the people you find, not necessarily the ones you were born to. The tensions behind the kitchen table, a great deal of what audiences saw was warmth and ease.
Guess that's what Christmas is all about. Oh, I'm really looking forward to it.
I guess we all are.
A great deal of what happened on the set was more complicated. The most significant personal friction was between B. Arthur and Betty White. Arthur was, by multiple accounts, a difficult presence in a professional setting. Her son, Matthew Sachs, later acknowledged that his mother was not a diplomatic person and that she found it fun to have somebody to be angry at, with White being her primary target. White, for her part, confirmed the tension without dramatizing it. "She was not that fond of me," she said on multiple occasions, with the kind of even-handedness that was characteristic of how she handled most things. The tension expressed itself on set in specific ways. When Estelle Getty had trouble with her lines, which became more frequent as the show progressed.
No, it's not. I feel like Tommy Lasorda should be standing by the bed waving to the bullpen.
White would improvise with the studio audience, going up to the bleachers to entertain them while the production reset. Arthur felt this was disrespectful to Getty and to the work. Writer Stan Zimmerman, who worked on the show and later wrote about the experience in his book, The Girls. From Golden to Gilmore, initially misread White's audience work as mockery. He later understood it differently. White was covering for Getty, keeping the room warm and the audience engaged while a colleague was struggling. The struggle Estelle Getty was having was not a professional one. It was a medical one, though almost nobody on the production knew it at the time. Getty was developing what would eventually be diagnosed as Lewy body dementia, a progressive neurological condition.
Anyway, he tells me to sniff his carnation for good luck. I take one whiff, and bingo.
He squirted your dress with it.
She would not receive that formal diagnosis until the year 2000, but the effects were already visible during the show's production. She wrote lines on props. She asked for cue cards in later seasons. Some members of the crew assumed she was going out at night and not getting enough sleep. Very few people knew what was actually happening. Getty had also, earlier in the show's run, attempted multiple times to leave the production. The pace and demands of weekly television, the volume of dialogue to be memorized, the relentless schedule, were overwhelming for someone whose primary background was theater. B. Arthur, among others, persuaded her to stay each time. Arthur's protectiveness of Getty was one of the less publicized but more consistent human qualities of her time on the show.
Are you willing to sacrifice the happiness of these two kids for the almighty dollar?
Yes!
The beginning of the end. The cracks that would ultimately end the Golden Girls were not structural. The show's creative core remained functional longer than many people assumed. They were personal, and they came primarily from one source. By the show's 6th and 7th seasons, B. Arthur had grown increasingly dissatisfied with the direction of the material. She felt the quality of the writing had declined from the early seasons, that the scripts were less sharp, less honest, and that the show had slipped into a mode of repetition that the early years had carefully avoided. She was specifically unhappy with jokes and storylines that she felt reduced Dorothy to the target of humor in ways that diminished the character rather than revealed her. Arthur was not someone who accepted diminishment philosophically.
Your pleasure or excitement.
Sure, that was my sex life with your father.
She had spent the better part of 2 decades playing women she believed in. Maud Findlay for 6 seasons, Dorothy Zbornak for 7, and she was not willing to spend whatever time remained doing otherwise. The ratings had also been declining. After spending its first 5 seasons in the top 5 of the Nielsen ratings, the show had been slipping. In its final 7th season, it had fallen to approximately number 30 overall. Still a position most shows would have been grateful for, but a significant drop that the producers and the network could not ignore. When Arthur announced she was leaving at the end of the 7th season, the network had the numbers to explain why continuing without her might be a significant commercial risk. The rest of the cast, the producers, and the network were taken by surprise by the firmness and the timing of Arthur's decision.
Rose, we've been over this 100 times. You cannot get pregnant using the toilet at the mall.
Betty White, who felt the show still had creative energy left in it, said she disagreed with the choice, that in her view, the series ended before it needed to. McClanahan and Getty characteristically accepted the situation without the public friction that would have made the departure more painful than it needed to be. The series finale aired on May 9th, 1992. Dorothy, in the final episode, married Blanche's uncle Lucas Hollingsworth, played by Leslie Nielsen, and moved with him to Atlanta, Georgia. The episode was written to give Arthur's departure narrative logic, and to provide the character she had played for 7 years with an ending that matched who Dorothy had always been. Someone who deserved eventually.
Just tell me where Ted is. Is he still asleep?
Stan, it's not what you think.
Hey, I read you, babe. Mum's a word.
To get what she'd wanted. The Golden Palace, what didn't work. The producers, Susan Harris, Paul Younger-Witt, and Tony Thomas, had hoped to continue with the 3 remaining cast members. They pitched to NBC, which had aired the original series throughout its run. Warren Littlefield, who had been one of the architects of the show's existence, expressed interest, but offered only a 13-episode order, citing the declining ratings of the final season as a risk factor. CBS entered with a full-season 24-episode order. The producers took it. The Golden Palace, a spin-off in which Blanche, Rose, and Sophia left their Miami house and began managing an upscale hotel called the Golden Palace, premiered on CBS on September 14, 1992, exactly 7 years after the original show's premiere.
Look like you want to kiss me. Okay, move your lips around. Now go like this.
Blanche, I can't really...
Okay, get ready to kiss me.
The cast included Don Cheadle as the hotel's manager Roland Wilson, a young Don Cheadle, years before his Oscar-winning film career, and Cheech Marin as the chef Chuy Castillos. B. Arthur appeared in 2 episodes, a 2-part storyline about Sophia, and nothing more. The show was not good, and it was not received well. The absence of B. Arthur was simply too significant to work around. Dorothy had been the straight-line center of the original ensemble, the character whose weariness and intelligence gave the other 3 characters something to play against. Without her, the balance of the original show was gone. The chemistry that had made the kitchen table scenes the emotional heart of the Golden Girls was absent from the hotel lobby of the Golden Palace.
You look like you're going to a cocktail party.
Sí, mucho bazumas.
Estelle Getty, by this point, was struggling more visibly with her memory, relying heavily on cue cards and supplementary support during production. CBS canceled the Golden Palace after 1 season. 24 episodes were produced. It was the end of the story in any active sense. After the show, the losses. The 4 women who had sat at that kitchen table went on from the Golden Girls into lives that ran their natural courses. And that ended, in each case, in a way that said something about the distance between the characters they had played and the people they had been. Estelle Getty, who had been quietly dealing with the early stages of dementia throughout the later years of the show, was formally diagnosed with Lewy body dementia in 2000.
Oh, yeah, well, you're a barbell.
That's a dumbbell, you twit.
By then, she had long since left the Golden Palace and had largely withdrawn from public life. She was cared for at her home in Los Angeles in her final years, and the dementia progressed to the point where she could no longer recognize friends or maintain the kind of conversation that had once been her primary instrument as a performer. She died on July 22, 2008, 3 days before what would have been her 85th birthday. B. Arthur, upon learning of Getty's death, said that their mother-daughter relationship on screen had been one of the greatest comic duos she had ever been part of. It was a generous tribute from someone who was not, by most accounts, naturally given to them. B. Arthur died on April 25, 2009.
Well, why don't I just check my date book and I'll let you know.
Sure. I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay.
At her home in Brentwood, Los Angeles. She was 86 years old. The cause was lung cancer, and she had maintained her privacy about the illness throughout her final years. The announcement came to many who admired her as a sudden loss. She had stayed largely out of the public eye in her final decade, doing occasional theater and maintaining the personal distance that had characterized her throughout her professional life. Her son Matthew Sachs described a woman who was not close to many people, who had a certain formidable quality even in private, but who had loved the work and had known she was doing something real with it. She was awarded the Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement in Theater in 2008. Rue McClanahan died on June 3, 2010, at the age of 76. She had suffered a stroke.
This might happen, so I went out and bought a cheesecake.
Oh, Rose, that's great.
She had continued working after the shows ended, appearing in theater productions, taking roles in television films, and guest appearances, and had been an active and vocal advocate for animal rights throughout her later years. She had been married 6 times across her life, which is perhaps the most Blanche Devereaux biographical detail available. She approached her later years with the same openness and engagement that had defined the character she was most associated with. Betty White continued working at a pace that surprised everyone and seemed to surprise her not at all. She hosted Saturday Night Live in 2010 at the age of 88, after a Facebook campaign launched by fans to convince the show's producers to book her. She appeared in The Proposal, Hot in Cleveland,
Also, the only place a guy can wear a cape without getting a lot of funny looks.
in dozens of commercials and guest spots and media appearances that kept her visible and active in American entertainment into her 90s. She became, in her final decade, a beloved cultural figure in a way that went beyond any specific role. Someone who represented a kind of durable warmth and good humor that people found genuinely comforting. She died on December 31st, 2021, 17 days before what would have been her 100th birthday. The grief that followed was unusual in its quality, personal rather than just respectful, the sense of losing someone who felt, to millions of strangers, like they actually knew her. What the show left behind. The Golden Girls ran for 7 seasons and produced 180 episodes.
What are you talking about?
That was my 4-H diary. I kept it one summer when I raised 2 pigs for the county fair.
It won 2 Emmy Awards for Outstanding Comedy Series. It launched a failed spin-off and a British remake called The Brighton Bells that ran for 2 series in the UK. It has been in continuous syndication since it ended, airing on cable channels and streaming platforms every day for more than 30 years, which is a different kind of longevity than critical reputation confers, a longevity built on repeat viewing and genuine affection from people who return to the show not out of nostalgia, but because it still works. The show changed what American television would allow itself to imagine about older women. What they wanted, what they felt, what they were still capable of choosing and losing and finding. It did this without being earnest about it. The cheesecake was real. The laughs were real.
Nose with one hand, and you pop a Crispy in your mouth with the other.
The love between those 4 characters, however complicated the love between the 4 actresses who played them may sometimes have been, was real in the way that good writing makes things real. By finding the emotional truth inside a specific situation and trusting the audience to recognize it. All 4 of them are gone now. The kitchen table is empty. The show remains. Still funny, still honest, still finding new audiences who discover it for the first time and wonder why nobody told them about it sooner. If this took you back to Saturday nights in the 1980s, hit the like button and subscribe. There are more stories like this one waiting.